A real collusion story, some evolution on inflation from the Fed and Janet Yellen, and a tax credit bait and switch top our political stories for the week. Let's bring in our panel. Genevieve Wood is a senior advisor and spokesperson for the Heritage Foundation, and Doug Schoen, one of the most influential Democratic campaign consultants of the last half-century. He's also the author of the book, The End of Democracy, Russia and China on the Rise, America in Retreat. Okay, folks, let's go. Jen Psaki has confirmed that the White House is working closely with Facebook to help them censor millions of posts and profiles that they deem to be pushing COVID misinformation. Take a look.
Information travels quite quickly on social media platforms. Sometimes it's not accurate, and Facebook needs to move more quickly to remove harmful, violative posts.
So, of course, for many, that misinformation could be their opinion. It could be scientific statements, perhaps, that don't necessarily toe the line of the medical bureaucracy. Doug, between this and growing concerns over the Biden door-to-door vaccine push and medical privacy being eviscerated in this country, is this all going too far?
Well, I'd say certainly in terms of freedom of speech, it is. I get that there's misinformation about vaccines, but I also understand that on a lot of issues, we're dealing with gray areas where reasonable people may differ, disagree, and that there are consensus that may or may not be fully accurate. So I would rather err on the side of inclusion with Facebook, particularly on the issues of vaccines and safety given the pandemic, particularly given the Delta variant. And I'm a little concerned when the White House is trying to censor anyone or anything, notwithstanding the fact that I am a Democrat.
You know, Doug and Genevieve, I know physicians who have decades of medical practice under their belts who have been censored for raising questions and issues that are part of the normal discourse. And, you know, Genevieve, former President Trump talked about this, about big tech basically being a communications arm for liberals in the government at this point. Doesn't this all prove his point to some degree?
Well, yeah, I mean, for a long time, people have been saying that the left is kind of, they are in bed with big tech, Facebook, Twitter, and the like, and that Facebook and Twitter basically only censor positions made by conservatives or conservative statements. Now I think you have Jen Psaki basically just admitting what many people have suspected for a very long time. And not only admitting it, but saying we're going to actually throttle up on this. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the government saying, here's what can be printed, here's what can't be printed. She calls it misinformation. Who's going to define what's misinformation? Just
right.
Whatever the White House in this case doesn't like, what Democrats don't like. Look, we've seen this happen before, and this is not an area where you can say, well, these are just private companies and they're doing their own thing. They may be private companies, but these are private companies that are increasingly acting like state actors.
Right.
So I think we've got a confusion here between the private marketplace and free speech.
Yeah, and that's that First Amendment issue here, because even though they are private companies, if they are doing sort of the bidding of the state, and it looks like there's a collusion there, then they do have to follow First Amendment protections. Okay, moving on. Tens of millions of Americans started getting their new child tax credit payments this week, but as the Wall Street Journal has exposed, this isn't exactly manna from heaven. Millions of Americans may actually have to pay this money back. Now, Doug, I know the Democrats want to get people sort of used to the idea of getting checks from the government and being on the dole, but this is going to be a very big bait and switch for folks. Do you think that the administration is being transparent with people, or is just pumping this up for political reasons?
Oh, I think this is being pumped up for political reasons, especially, Tom, given the $3.5 trillion proposal that Majority Leader Schumer is pushing through now with the test votes coming this week. So I think that there is, in a certain sense, a desire to create a sugar high, if you will, to create a favorable climate for public opinion for really an unprecedented overreach by government with uncertain ways of paying for it all. Put another way, I think we're in uncharted waters. I know we're going to get to inflation in a second, And I worry that we are heading also down a path there of uncertainty and potential instability.
Genevieve, as we're running out of time, unfortunately, this isn't a tax credit at all. It is a prepayment based on your 2020 income. So if you make more this year, you may have to give this money back to the IRS. Have you ever seen anything quite like this on this scale?
No, it's fiscal insanity. It's printing money. It's giving money to people that we don't have. And then, as you just rightly pointed out, maybe saying to them, hey, by the way, you got to now send that back. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. And we're seeing the numbers coming through. With the unemployment insurance has been a disaster in many cases. We're paying people to stay home. You see prices going up at the grocery store, and now you're playing with people's pocketbooks. I think this could very well backfire and not be that people are going to come down very hard from the sugar high that Doug mentioned if this continues.
Yeah, I mean, the idea here is that people, it's going to hurt, particularly middle-class families. You've got a whole bunch of people who are getting these checks that don't actually pay taxes, but for the people who do, if they make more this year, they're going to have to give that back. And President Biden should be clear with people about this. This is not just manna from heaven. I unfortunately have to leave it there, guys. Always love talking to you. Genevieve Wood, Doug Schoen, have a great week.
Thanks for watching the Heritage Foundation's YouTube channel. With more than 500,000 members, we are the nation's largest conservative research and education institution. We believe the principles and ideas of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing. Please help us further our mission by subscribing to this channel and sharing our videos with your family and friends.